Don't forget to record.
Hello, everyone. We're just going to give everyone 2 minutes to log in, and then we'll begin. Everyone, we're just going to give to 12:02 Eastern time, and then we'll begin. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining our webinar. A couple of rules of the game. Please post your questions in the Q&A only. We will have time for questions, but the moderator will only be able to take them from the Q&A and not the chat box. A recording of this webinar and slides will be posted shortly after the webinar on our community site at realtime.inc.com. And late in the day, we will also be emailing a copy of the webinar to all participants. A little bit about myself. I'm the founder and CEO of MultiFunding. I'm an Inc. columnist writing regularly on business lending issues. I've advised former administrations about the business credit markets. I have a book out called The Growth Dilemma, and I'm a proud board member of EO Philadelphia. But you didn't come here to learn about me. You came here to learn about what's going on with the CARES Act. Some disclaimers just before we begin. We are in an unprecedented time in history, and the information available to us is changing rapidly. Please refer to our most current presentation for education. Information we provided as early as yesterday could be outdated. The information provided is based upon our best judgment about what we know at this time and a decade of experience with SBA lending. However, key questions remain about how to implement this program. MultiFunding LLC does not accept any liability as it relates to the timeliness or content of the information we are sharing today or may share in the future, and we are under no legal duty to update any such information or recommendations. We want it to be clear that while we are happy to provide you with education pertaining to these new government programs, we are not acting as agents, packages, or brokers, and will not be able to help you get a loan placed with a specific lender or prepare or assemble applications or documentations for use in applications as it relates to PPP loans. We encourage you to check in with your attorneys, CPAs, and financial advisors for additional insight. Now that we've made the lawyers happy, let's begin. Where's the action in the CARES Act for small businesses? Primarily, it is in the Paycheck Protection Program. $349 billion is allocated to this program, and as of last night, $210 billion has already been approved to over 860,000 applicants. Be very careful, approved does not mean funded, but this program is moving along at a robust pace. For the EIDL, $10 billion is allocated. 4 million businesses have already requested $383 billion. The program has been a stepchild and is unfortunately right now in disarray. For the SBA debt relief, $17 billion has been allocated. The status of the EIDL loans and grants. Grants are now being made up for up to $10,000 at the rate of $1,000 per employee, not $10,000 total. Some applicants are getting offers for a $15,000 working capital line in addition to the grant at 3.75%. And we are only aware of one business owner that's gotten a grant in his account at this time, and he was applicant number 23,999. Long and short of it, this program is like the lottery now. The money seems to be flowing more with the PPP gold rush, which presents opportunity, chaos, and danger. What do I mean? Getting PPP money is like a maze. There are lots of paths to follow. You have to be careful which one you choose. You can't go down too many, and you could go down the wrong one. I know that sounds confusing, so let me dig in. Why are the front-end complexities of the PPP program? Every bank and lender is interpreting some of the vague rules their own way. So if you go to one bank with one PPP, the same PPP application as the other, you might get approved for a different amount. Big banks are absolutely having the hardest time due to their volume. It's just an unprecedented challenge for them, and they're having a real hard time keeping up. Many sites on the web are quote unquote open for business, but don't have a home for these applications yet. So you could go down a path that will get you nowhere. And you can apply through more than one source, but you must be careful that two applications don't hit the SBA site at the same time, or this could cause a fraud alert. And with all this, you must be very wary of scams. There are complexities to the back-end process. Once a bank or credit union or authorized lender has submitted your application and you've been approved by the SBA, your lender has 10 days to get you the money. But the closing processes are different by bank, and there are not clean documents as of this morning that detail the loan forgiveness clauses. So banks are struggling to get out the money. And for the most part, where the money is flowing today, at least, with small community banks and credit unions. We hope that more of the bigger and more medium-sized banks will start to get money on the street this week. Keep in mind that banks, for the most part, are understandably taking care of their customers first, and that applied and funded are two very different things. Many people are understandably scared and nervous and asking, my bank is backed up and not participating, what do I do? Our first advice is breathe. Second is see if there's a community bank in your area who is being successful. They might want your checking account, but that's okay. Look for a community bank in your area, ask your friends if they've had some success. Only one internet site we're aware of, Fundera.com, has sources for these loans, but they have a long line and are encouraging borrowers to consider them as a plan B and look for a local bank first. And with all this, be extremely careful of scams. Who is eligible to participate in the PPP program? Any small business with 500 or fewer employees is eligible. A 501c3 is eligible also, and in a few cases, a bigger business is also eligible. Household employers are also ineligible. What are the attributes of the loan? You can apply for 2.5 times your monthly payroll. Interest rate is 1% fixed. All payments are deferred for 6 months. However, interest will continue to accrue over this period. The loan is due in 2 years. There are no prepayment penalties or fees, and no collateral is required. There is no personal guarantee requirement. However, if the proceeds are used for fraudulent purposes, the government will and can pursue criminal charges against you. You do not have to prove that you can't get credit elsewhere. All loans will be the same terms regardless of lender or borrower, and there are no lender fees, and agents cannot charge fees to borrowers. Different lenders have different requirements, and the completed application can be found here. In addition to the completed application, you have to submit to your lender proof of your payroll costs for last year that you're using as a basis of your application. Payroll costs include salary, wages, commissions, or tips, capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis for each employee. So if someone earns $300,000, They're eligible for 2.5 months of $100,000 of that salary, including benefits, in addition, vacation, parental, family, medical, sick leave benefits, allowance for separation, payments for the healthcare benefits, and payments of any retirement benefits can also be included. State and local taxes are assessed on compensation, and for a sole proprietor or independent contractor, wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment capped at $100,000 on an annualized basis are eligible for each employee. The $100,000 cap is based on salary, but benefits are over and above it. So if you can apply for $100,000 for somebody plus benefits such as their health insurance. How do you determine your average payroll? It is based on the 2019 calendar year. For most applicants, it's fairly simple. You take your total payroll, divide by 12, and multiply by 2.5, including the $100,000 cap. In some instances where it is a seasonal business or a new business, there are other ways to calculate it. How do you determine your number of employees? It is based on your average employment over the same period as you used to determine your average payroll cost. So let's say if you're applying based on your average payroll cost for all of 2019, you simply take your average number of employees in 2019. Are federal taxes ineligible? Payroll costs are calculated on a gross basis without regard to federal taxes imposed or withheld, such as the employees and the employee's share of FICA and income taxes required to be withheld from employees. Payroll costs are not reduced by taxes imposed on an employee and are required to be withheld by the employer, but payroll costs do not include the employer's share of payroll tax. There's common questions about this. Employers cannot include their 1099s or contractors in their calculations. You are considered owners. This is important. All parties listed below are considered owners of the applicant. For sole proprietorship, it is the sole proprietor. For a partnership, all general partners and all limited partners owning 20% or more of the equity of the firm. For a corporation, all owners of 20% or more of the corporation. For an LLC, all members owning 20% or more of the company and any trustor. What will disqualify you for any owners? If the applicant or any owner of the applicant presently suspended, debarred, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, voluntarily excluded from participation in this transaction by any federal department or agency, or presently involved in any bankruptcy, you are disqualified. So if any owners are currently in the middle of a bankruptcy or the business is involved in a bankruptcy, you are disqualified. If the applicant or any of the applicant is currently delinquent on an SBA loan or has defaulted in the last 7 years, causing a permanent loss to the government, you are disqualified. What do you have to include for any owners? For any owners who have interests in businesses with more additional employees, you have to include this in an appendix so the bank can look at affiliation rules. You must advise, but these are not disqualifiers. Has the business received an EIDL? This will be rare. Is the United States the principal place of residence for all employees of the applicant included in the applicant's payroll calculation above? And is the applicant a franchise that is not listed in the SBA's franchise directory? What will disqualify you for any owners 20% or more? If the applicant is currently indicted on probation or parole or incarcerated, or any 20% owners are, you're disqualified. And within the last 5 years, if there's been any felony against any applicants or their 20% owners, you are disqualified. If owners are not U.S. citizens or foreign companies, despite previous guidance, this is not a disqualifier on the current form. So as long as your employees are in the United States, you are qualified. You will have to represent and authorize that all SBA loan proceeds will be used for business-related purposes as specified in the loan application. To the extent possible, that you will purchase only American-made equipment and products. and the applicant is not engaged in any activity that is ineligible under federal, state, or local law. You have to certify, anyone owning 20% or more, that you're applying because current economic uncertainty makes loan requests necessary for the ongoing operations of the applicant. That the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll or make mortgage payments, lease payments, and utility payments. The documentation, you will provide documentation to the such, and that loan forgiveness will be calculated as a ratio to the amount you use for payroll, at least 75%, and then rent payments, covering utilities and interest payments for the other 25%. You can use the proceeds only for payroll costs, interest on mortgage, rent, under lease agreements, or utilities. What will be forgiven, subject to further guidance? You will owe money when your loan is due if you use the loan amount for anything other than payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities payments over the 8 weeks after getting the loan. And not more than 25% of the amount will be forgiven for non-payroll costs. You will owe money if you do not maintain your staff and payroll. For the number of staff, your loan forgiveness will be reduced if you decrease your full-time employee headcount. And your level of forgiveness will also be reduced if you decrease salaries and wages by more than 25% for any employee that made less than $100,000 annualized in 2019. Let's be clear, the forgiveness laws are not clear, and we await further guidance from the SBA about exactly how they will work. How will you request forgiveness? You can submit a request to the lender that is servicing the loan. You will have to provide all the documents to verify what you've done and certify that they are correct. And then the lender will have 60 days to render a decision and render the forgiveness. Affiliation rules apply to those companies who have owners who have other interests that total employees include more than 500 people. Information is available on our private education options about these rules. Are eligible to receive SBA loans regardless of whether they provide secular social services. Churches, including temples, mosques, synagogues, and other houses of worship, as long as they have a 501c3 status with the IRS, are eligible to receive PPP loans. Organizations will not sacrifice their autonomy, First Amendment, or statutory rights by applying for a PPP loan. Let's briefly talk about the EIDL grants. Loans currently up to $10,000 at $1,000 per employee. We are providing the link where you can apply, but remember, this is kind of like the lottery right now. There are similar eligibility requirements as the PPP. At present, up to $15,000 loans is in addition to the grant. You do not have to be in business 1 year before the disaster. There's no forgiveness and no credit elsewhere requirements. Keep in mind that unfortunately, there's nowhere right now on the web to check the status of your application. In addition, there's an SBA debt relief program. So for everyone out there who currently has an SBA loan or will get one before September 27, 2020, the SBA will pay the principal and interest for 6 months, and this will be forgiven, not deferred. What is happening right now? I'm sorry I didn't update these numbers. There are $210 billion for something like 800,000 applications that have been through. Money is slowly moving, starting to flow to borrowers, and we expect that to pick up this week. Banks and participating lenders are working on their closing processes. Currently, the EIDL application on SBA.gov only takes you as far as the $10,000 grant application. We don't see that changing anytime soon. And especially in such a tumultuous time, I caution everyone to beware of scams. What could happen? PPPL loans can only be taken by participating authorized banks or credit unions. As of right now, EIDL loans are only available at SBA.gov. Debt relief programs for existing 7A borrowers should be automatic. Check with your existing lender. Forgiveness applications will be made directly with whomever processes your PPP, and agents are forbidden to charge fees to a borrower to help you take applications or find you a lender. Do not pay any fees. Agents can be paid by banks, but we expect this to be uncommon. My best advice is to stay close to your trusted banker. And if your bank is not going to participate or is struggling to get through the process, such as many big banks are, look for a community bank or credit union in your area who will likely want your checking account in exchange for your application. And this is probably a really fair trade. In addition, there are many state and local resources available to help you. And to see if there's something in your area, please go to our community site at realtime.inc.com. Some follow-up resources for your consideration. Our online community and Q&A can be found at realtime.inc.com. We are doing regular webinars with updates on these programs at webinars.multifunding.com. Including tomorrow, we will be providing a webinar with new information about the Main Street Lending Program. SBA disaster loans applications can be found there. And if you wish to have private education opportunities with one of our advisors, there's a link. Now we will open the floor for questions. Thank you so much.
We have a partnership. We originally included our partner draws with our average payroll. Bank kicked it back and made us remove that. What do we do now to secure the portion of the PPP? Are we simply not able to apply, or do we apply as self-employed individuals and go from there?
If the question is if the bank already submitted your PPP to the government for approval, and if they did, then you're done. Really, this is the unfortunate part of the maze, that the rules specifically around partner distributions are not totally clear. And each bank is going to interpret them differently. So you can try see if a different lender in your area will do it differently and try your luck. That's my best advice. Just a quick note to folks that please don't post in the chat, please post in the Q&A. That's where the moderator will be reading questions from. So if you want your questions answered, please go to the Q&A.
Do you have any information about tax credits to encourage employers to retain their existing employees?
I know that they're available. It's not my area of expertise, and I would encourage you to check that with your accountant.
When calculating forgiveness, is the 75% of total wages the first number you calculate and then move to full-time employees and then dollar for dollar if an employee is below 75% of previous quarter wages?
Yes, there are a lot of questions, and there probably will be a lot of questions about calculating the forgiveness. And the reality is no one can really answer them right now because there's no clear guidance about it. So I understand why people are worried about it and want to do it as part of their planning, but the honest answer is that it's anybody's best guess about how that's exactly going to work.
My status on EIDL site says your application has been received, but please reapply to the following website. I have reapplied twice now, and the message doesn't seem to change. Do you have any suggestions?
Unfortunately, you're playing the lottery, and I don't know. It's a big black hole and a big mess right now.
If you have not heard back from your original lender where you placed your PPP app, can you apply at a second lender and go back and withdraw your original application?
Yes, the only danger you have to be careful about is that two lenders don't at the same time submit PPP applications for you. And
what if an employee that wants to start working part-time instead of full-time, or if we have an employee that quits? Does that count against us as far as our head count decreasing?
Sorry, folks. Again, that's the tricky part around forgiveness, and there are lots and lots of variations, and no one really knows the answers. So I do encourage people to please follow the intent of the law, which is it's designed to keep your employees on payroll. And I'm sure there will be nuances and circumstances that will come up, but no one knows exactly now how those will be. I'm sorry.
I recently read about the employee retention credit for payroll tax. It is available to small businesses which do not take small business loans. I've applied for the EIDL grant and the PPP. Would these be classified as loans per their criteria?
I'm sure they will be. And so it would be wise for you to consider, based on your situation, if the retention credit is a better benefit for you, the PPP or the EIDL, especially if you haven't gotten them yet. And that is really an evaluation you have to do with your CPA or financial advisor. That's not my area of expertise.
If we have received notification of funding of our PPP loan, do we need to open a new bank account to put the money in during the eligible period to spend the money, or can we use an existing bank account?
That's up to you. There are many accountants around the country who are advising you to flow the PPP money through a separate account. You have control what you use the money on. And I don't think that's a bad idea, but it's entirely up to you if you want to do that or not. You're not required by law.
Is the $10,000 forgiven taxable?
It's not clear, I'm sorry, folks, it's not clear whether the EIDL grant is taxable or not. Given part of PPP loans is supposed to not be a taxable event.
Has the start date for the forgiveness period of receiving funds become flexible to push back, or does it start on the receipt of funds?
It starts on the receipt of the funds, and the bank by law is to get you the money within 10 days of you getting the approval by the SBA. Remember, for that question, if I can read through the lines of it, many people, I think, are hoping to defer the disbursement of their PPP so they can prolong the time they bring their employees back to work, closer to when life will hopefully get back to normal. And that is absolutely not the intent of the program and would be going against the intent of the law.
Can you participate in the payroll tax credit, paid sick leave, Families First Act, as well as the PPP loan program?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask your CPA about that.
Is the new EIDL loan app available? It still looks like a grant application, or is that the loan application too?
That's the loan application right now. And remember, just to set everyone's expectations clearly, barring some miracle, that is like a lottery ticket right now. You have the chances of getting that EIDL as close to winning the lottery right now.
Regarding timing of funds, if I got approved last Thursday, when do I have to call my employees back if we're not able to conduct business yet?
You have to call, if you want the amount forgiven, you have to call them back just before you get the money. So remember, folks, this is very important. Even if they're sitting at home doing nothing, the intent of this program is to keep them on your payroll, keep paying their benefits, and keep your team intact so that when the country does reopen, you're ready to go.
Will hazard pay to my employees be forgiven if my payroll is over 75% and I met all other criteria?
Well, I don't know. Again, that falls into the category of so much gray area around the forgiveness rules.
How far back does the bankruptcy go? 5, 7, 10 years?
I believe that it's only for current bankruptcies. It's not for historic bankruptcies.
We received an E-Tran number. How long will it take before the business receives funds?
That's up to your bank, but by law, they have to get it to you within 10 days, hopefully sooner.
We have a family farm. Are we eligible for EIDL and the PPP?
I guess the question is, what's the formation of the farm?
Okay. Some of our employees make over 100K, but they only reach after their bonus in December. How can we include them in the 100K if we're not only looking for the 8-week period?
please email or reach out to me on that question personally. It's complicated and I don't want to answer it incorrectly.
Can the PPP be used for rent lease payments only?
It is a permissible use of the PPP, but I don't believe any of that will be forgiven if that's all you use it for.
How do you calculate full-time employees?
Based on your average number of employees on your payroll in 2019. Folks, I apologize. We're only going to be able to take one more question. And just before we do that, I want to remind you of our resources that are available. Our online community magazine is available at realtime.inc.com. Regular webinars and updates are available here. And in tomorrow's webinar, we'll be including information about the new Main Street lending program. If you wish to apply for an EIDL loan, there's a link. And if you want some private time with one of our advisors, there's a link there as well. So fortunately, we have time for one more question, and then we got to head on out. So
what are the requirements for payroll after the 2 months? What if you're still not open and can't afford to keep them?
some vagueness about the rules, but my interpretation is there are no requirements.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I know these are difficult times for everybody. We wish you Godspeed. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.